Every case has a file. Every file has a secret. Some were buried, some were forgotten, until now. These are the Shrouded Files. A farmer told his neighbor someone was walking in his attic at night. He found footprints in the snow leading to his house, none leading back out. 4 days later, every person living on that farm was dead, and whoever killed them was still inside the house. April 4th, 1922. The hills of Upper Bavaria, about 40 miles north of Munich. A farmstead called Hinterkaifeck sat in a clearing ringed by pine forest. 2 buildings, a house and a barn, joined under one roof. 6 people lived there. None of them had been seen for nearly a week. The 7-year-old girl, Cecilia, hadn't shown up at school. The mail from the previous Saturday was still sitting on the porch. The neighbors had heard nothing from the family for days. So a small group walked out to the farm to check. The house was locked from the inside. The barn door wasn't. Lorenz Schlittenbauer pushed it open. He stopped before the others could see what he was seeing. He stepped over the hay piled against the wall, lifted it. The 4 oldest members of the Gruber family were stacked underneath. This is Shrouded Files, the cases that were never closed. Subscribe for a new case every week. None of them have clean endings. Hinterkaifeck was isolated even by Bavarian standards. To get there, you walked a half-mile uphill from the nearest village. The farm was bordered on 3 sides by woodland. In winter, the road was often impassable. Visitors were rare. The family inside that farmhouse was, by every account, deeply unhappy. The patriarch was Andreas Gruber, 63 years old, a hard man with a hard reputation. He was known in the village for 2 things: keeping to himself and being harsh. With his wife, with his daughter, and with anyone who crossed him in business. His wife, Cecilia, was 72. Their widowed daughter, Victoria Gabriel, was 35. Her husband, Karl, had been declared killed in France during the First World War almost a decade earlier. Her 2 children lived on the farm with her, Cecilia, 7 years old, and Joseph, just 2. There was a 6th person at the farmhouse on the night of the murders, Maria Baumgartner, the new maid. She was 44 years old, and she had walked through the front door for the very first time that afternoon. She had been hired to replace the previous maid, who had quit 6 months earlier. The previous maid had told neighbors that the farm was haunted. She said she had heard footsteps in the attic when no one was up there. She had seen a face at one of the upstairs windows when she was certain no one was inside. She left and refused to return. Andreas Gruber had said similar things in the weeks before the murders. He told a neighbor that he had found a strange newspaper in the kitchen, one that no one in the household had bought. He said the spare house key had gone missing from where he always kept it. He told another man in the village he had seen footprints in the snow, leading from the forest edge directly up to the farmhouse, and none leading back out. He told several people about the footsteps in the attic. He had gone up there himself. He had found nothing. He did not tell the police. We don't fully know why. He may not have believed it. He may not have wanted strangers on his property. According to those who knew him, Andreas Gruber was the kind of man who handled his own problems. That decision is the one his family did not survive. The murders happened on the evening of Friday, March 31st, 1922. The 4 older Grubers were killed in the barn, one at a time. Investigators believe the killer used a mattock, a heavy farming tool with a pickaxe head, found later at the scene. The wounds matched. They were lured into the barn separately over the span of minutes. None of the 4 appears to have been able to warn the next. The autopsy suggested they had each been struck from behind. Cecilia, the 7-year-old, did not die immediately. The medical examiner found that she had lived for several hours after she was attacked. During those hours, she had pulled out tufts of her own hair with her fists. When the killer was finished in the barn, he walked into the house. He killed 2-year-old Joseph in his crib in the bedroom. He killed Maria Baumgartner, the new maid, who had been on the farm for less than 12 hours, in her bed. Then he covered the bodies in the barn with hay and straw, and then he stayed. Smoke rose from the chimney over the following days. Neighbors saw it and assumed nothing was wrong. The Grubers were known to keep to themselves. The cattle in the barn, just feet from the bodies, had been fed and milked. The kitchen showed signs that meals had been prepared and eaten. Bread had been sliced. The stove was warm when investigators eventually reached it. For 3 days, possibly 4, someone lived inside the Hinterkaifeck farmhouse with the bodies of the 6 people who'd owned it. The postman delivered a parcel on Saturday. He noticed nothing. A coffee salesman knocked on the door on Monday. He got no answer and left. On Tuesday, April 4th, when little Cecilia had still not appeared at school, the neighbors finally walked up the hill. Whoever had been inside was gone by then. The investigation that followed was, in hindsight, compromised from the first hour. Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor who led the search party, moved the bodies in the barn before the police arrived. He later said he had been looking for the children, hoping someone was still alive. Critics pointed out something else. Schlittenbauer had been in a paternity dispute with Andreas Gruber. There were rumors in the village, never proven, that Schlittenbauer believed he, not Andreas, was the real father of little Joseph. He had financial disagreements with the family. He was the only person who walked freely through the crime scene before it was secured. He became one of the first suspects. He was never charged. He sued people in the village who accused him publicly, and he won. He was not the only suspect. Over the decades that followed, more than 100 names were investigated. A second theory pointed to Victoria's husband, Karl Gabriel, the soldier supposedly killed in France in 1914. His body had never been positively identified. According to this theory, Karl came back, found that his wife had borne a child by her own father, and took his revenge. The theory was popular for years in the village. No evidence has ever supported it. A third theory held that the killer was a stranger, a drifter or itinerant who had been hiding in the attic for days or weeks before the killings. This is the theory that fits the strange details Andreas reported: the missing key, the unfamiliar newspaper, the footsteps overhead, the footprints in the snow that led only one way. If that theory is correct, the killer had been in the house long before the family knew. The investigation was reopened multiple times. In 1986, German police reviewed the file with new techniques and found no answers. In 2007, a class of forensic students at the Bavarian Police Academy in Fürstenfeldbruck conducted what may be the most thorough modern re-examination of the case. They identified what they considered a likely killer based on the evidence available. They did not release the name. Their reasoning: descendants of the suspect were still alive, and the Academy did not believe it was right to publicly accuse a man who could no longer defend himself. The names of the dead are easier to find than the name of who killed them. There is one more thing. In the months after the murders, the skulls of the 6 victims were sent to a clairvoyant in Munich. This was not unusual at the time. They were never returned. During the bombing of Munich in the Second World War, they were lost, most likely destroyed. The skulls were the last piece of forensic evidence that might have answered the question. They are gone. 6 people died at Hinterkaifeck on the night of March 31st, 1922. But that wasn't the beginning. The beginning was weeks earlier when a farmer found a newspaper in his kitchen that he had not bought, when his spare key disappeared from its hook, when he climbed up into his own attic to investigate footsteps and found that whoever had been making them had already gone quiet. He told his neighbors. He did not tell the police. Whoever was up in that attic in the days and weeks before the murders may have been the killer. Or they may have been a warning of something already too far along to be stopped. We don't know. The farmhouse was demolished a year after the killings. The villagers wouldn't go near the land. Today, the only thing standing at Hinterkaifeck is a stone memorial cross, 6 names carved into it, one for each of the dead. Around it is empty field. The forest still presses in from 3 sides. The case remains officially open. German police have not closed it. New leads still surface from old letters, from estate sales, from family records being opened 100 years later. But the people who could have answered the question are buried at the village church. And every theory ends the same way. If you knew someone was inside your house, why didn't you leave? Thanks for watching. If you have a theory, or if you've heard something about this case that we haven't, drop it in the comments. This community has eyes and ears everywhere, and cases like this one deserve more than silence. Catch you in the next file.